in order to be effective. That is true. Wait, let me use the restroom real quick. Hold on one second.
U.S. economy is. Markets down. Let's take today's number, 9%. If that's right, that would be about $4 trillion. Now, the stock market only measures the adverse impact on corporate profits, not the adverse impact on workers, not the adverse impact on consumers. So you need to add to that stock market number. One way of thinking about adding to it would be to say that corporate profits were 10% of the economy. So you could argue for multiplying by a factor of 10, but maybe that's being too exaggerating or too bold. So let's multiply by...
Okay, I'm sorry. Which guy is talking? Who is this guy? Should I know who this is? Is this Larry Summers or is this the evil Sachs guy? I don't know what these people look like. Larry Summers. Do we like Larry Summers? Former Federal Reserve head. Oh, so he's a smart guy? Because he just said something I don't know if I agree with. The stock market only measures corporate profits. The stock market is going to be a proxy on a whole bunch more than just that. That's a very fundamental, basic, not true view of the
stock market number. One way of thinking about adding to it would be to say that corporate profits were 10% of the economy. So you could argue for multiplying by a factor of...
Over longer terms, he means... Oh, okay, never mind. Okay.
10.
Sorry.
But maybe that's being too exaggerating or too bold. So let's multiply by a factor of 5. And what you get is a loss in the $30 trillion range as the present value, as estimated by markets, of what's being done. Now, I know the Trump administration sometimes likes to say it's working for Main Street, not Wall Street. I noticed that they're pretty excited about the stock market rally yesterday.
Yep, they do that. Remember, stock market falls, so?
Losing money costs you nothing. This is just the reality of life. You're gonna, were you young and dumb? How much money did you lose? Everyone loses money. Everyone loses money. It costs you nothing. In fact, it builds quite a bit of character. In fact, you learn a lot of lessons, actually, by losing money.
It's bloody Black Monday. Holy moly. The Kamala crash is here.
Kamala needs to get in front of a camera today. People are losing their homes today. People are losing their fortunes today. People are losing their futures today. People are losing their 401ks today. This is shaping up to be one of the worst market days in American history.
No one cares about the stock market. Stock market rises. I've said this for years, but everybody knows this too. The indicators don't matter if they're bad, and if they are good, then they're the most important thing in the world.
In a way that wouldn't really go with not caring about markets. So I think what markets are seeing what's true, which is 3 things. This is an inflation shock because you're adding to prices. CEO of Amazon got it right. The Secretary of the Treasury got it wrong. Increases in tariffs of this magnitude, the overwhelming part of them will be passed on to consumers. So you've got an inflation shock. When you raise the prices of people and their income, at least in the short run, is the same, they're poorer. And that means they can afford less stuff. And that pushes the economy down. And so you've got higher inflation and you've got less demand and therefore more unemployment. All of that's bad for the economy and companies. And the last thing, which I think is profoundly important, is we are trading like an emerging market country right now. For serious countries, for the United States, the pattern is that when the world gets riskier, the bonds go down in yield and the currency goes up in value because people come for the safe haven.
Real quick. So what he's saying there is important to understand. When the market gets riskier, so there's more volatility and people are looking to park their money somewhere safe, people look to buying treasury bonds because the United States dollar is considered an incredibly safe investment, right? So there's a couple of really good knock-on effects that I've never even considered before. But if the world is risky, if there's weird stuff going on, the United States can deficit spend in a way that is easily fundable because more people buying more treasury bonds means that the interest rates on those will go down so we can issue debt for cheaper. It's good for us, generally speaking. This idea around people looking to park money in safe places was also a huge driver in the housing market collapse, is because for the first time you had something that was seen as oh my God, I can buy mortgages in the United States. It's basically a U.S. Treasury bond. It's almost as safe as that, and the returns are higher. And it was one of the huge drivers for why people were selling so many mortgages, why so many people were selling investment products and derivatives based on those mortgages, et cetera. It was the whole world was parking money into these CDOs. And it's why that was a global financial catastrophe. And it's why it wasn't just about houses or whatever. People say that. It was more financial. The housing market collapse, in my uneducated opinion, didn't really have much to do with the housing market. It had to do more with financial markets and global finance, I would say. But
when you're a country like Argentina, then the assets all move together. Falling stock prices go with higher bond yields, go with a weakening currency. And so because of our erratic behavior,
Destiny, it was regulatory. Yes, it was regulatory of financial markets. Thank you, Metalloid. Yes.
Have changed the zeitgeist surrounding America from the traditional zeitgeist surrounding America to the kind of zeitgeist that surrounded Juan Perón's Argentina. And that goes with all the other things that are happening. The more protectionism, denying the independence of the central bank, fiscal irresponsibility, breakdown of traditional boundaries between government and business, substantial cronyism as a strategy, authoritarian tendencies towards the opposition, lack of total respect for the judiciary.
Keep going, Larry. Keep
what we're seeing is a pattern of America being governed on the kind of Juan Perón Argentina model. And that sometimes produces some benefits for some people in the short run. That sometimes generates popularity for it. Perón kept coming back in Argentina, but ultimately it's extremely costly for a society.
You've heard Larry's take on all of this.
Larry's giving it about a B+ on the Harvard grade scale.
Which might be inflated, I'm not sure. Sachs.
Wait, does this Chamath, does he normally do podcasts with really smart people? Why is he such a retard? Somebody explain this to me.
Obviously, in the administration, you cover two things, AI and, of course, crypto. And you're a member of the pod, so let's get your take on what happened this week with these tariffs. Even the most ardent supporters of Trump have felt this is chaotic, not well executed, not communicated well. What's your take, Sachs, on how this was executed, and could this have been...
Wait, the Sachs guy might not be smart. Larry Summer guy seemed like he knows his shit.
...done better?
Well, I think what happened, if you go back to Liberation Day was only 8 days ago, it was April 2nd. If I had told you on April 1st that Donald Trump would find a way to get the entire world to eagerly embrace a 10% tariff on the American market.
Nobody is eagerly embracing this. You sellout stooge. You absolute fucking retard. Holy shit.
And not only would they not complain, but they'd actually be relieved.
Really? No one's complaining? Everybody feels relieved? People are still having discussions about what new trade deals would be in the United States. Carney in Canada has said that Canada is going to be leaving the United States and is looking for a new order in how things, like, seriously?
It's only 10%. You would have said that would be an April Fool's joke. If I had told you 8 days ago or 9 days ago that Trump would find a way to accelerate the United States' decoupling from China, which is something he's long wanted to do, and that Wall Street would basically breathe a sigh of relief over that, you would have said that there's no way that could happen.
No, everybody would agree that you can make people love living in huts if you nuke their cities and build the huts afterwards. Nobody in the planet would say that, like, oh yeah, like, of course people are going to enjoy a reprieve from some of the worst shit you could possibly do. Yeah, that's incredibly predictable. What are you talking about?
If I had told you 8 or 9 days ago that President Trump figured out a way to assert a presidential power in a way that gives America extraordinary leverage over virtually every country in the world, you would have said, well, I don't believe it. I don't, what is that power? And he proceeded to do that. And now basically every country in the world, except for China, is coming to Washington seeking to negotiate a new trade deal for the United States.
Yeah, when we're going to negotiate those, right? Are you guys excited for the 150 new bilateral trade agreements that the United States is going to negotiate?
Better terms for the U.S.
If you told me any of that a few days ago, I would have believed you, and I would have thought the consequences would be a substantially deteriorated American economy and a substantially less secure
I don't think we know
United
that.
States.
I don't think we know
it's
that.
It's not any surprise. There's nothing surprising about the fact that the United States has the power to extort Lesotho.
Yes.
It's just, and that's a country that was singled out in the Trump formula for the highest level of protection. There is no surprise in that. There is no surprise that the United States has the capacity to isolate itself from China. It will be very, very costly.
Japan's coming to Washington. South Korea's coming to Washington.
You don't think we already had deals with Japan? Do you think that these people have just... Do we have no trade deals in the history of the United States? It was not, like, this is the first time ever we've gotten trade deals with countries before? Like, hello?
Everybody's going to try to cut
Everyone's going to come to Washington.
It never would have occurred to anyone with experience in government that the United States would have any difficulty getting any major country to come send a representative to the United States to have a discussion and a negotiation with a the United States on a matter that was of concern to the United States.
Larry, why didn't
Never
they?
could possibly have come as any
Okay, let me let
surprise.
Sachs
Why
reply to
didn't
that.
they?
and Ezra,
They did. They have been.
to bring you in. Sachs, go ahead. You reply.
Then why didn't they, Larry? Do you think that all these countries were going to renegotiate their trade deals with the U.S. if President Trump asked nicely, if he said, pretty please, let's renegotiate our trade deals so you take up